Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your questions 7 days a week. Let's go ahead and jump into those questions. Bill, what do we have?
Harold Williams in Portsmouth is our first questioner today. If I record video from an ATEM switcher using H.264, the audio and video sometimes go out of sync. Is there a way to ensure that audio and video stay in sync?
Go, Jason.
Record them separately. No, just in the switcher, it can be tricky. I think you would have a better strike of luck. Just, I don't know, getting your preset. Yeah, never mind. Go ahead.
Go, Jeff.
So my question is, are you recording on the USB output to a computer and that's where it's going out of sync, or are you recording program from a USB-C drive connected to the ATEM? I've done the latter with a drive connected to it and many times, and I've not had any sync issues there. The other thing I think we need more information about is what you're doing as far as frame rates, and I wonder if you have some weird frame rate or disparate frame rates that are causing some kind of issue. But the first question would be, are you recording to a drive or are you recording to a computer from that USB-C port?
Go, Nikki.
Yeah, similar question. Are you recording audio also on the ATEM? I've seen it in the past year and a half, where encoding done on ATEMs results in out of sync issues, even though on the way into the switcher, the audio and video are in sync. And I've helped several people in the community with this, and I think even Jason, based on the panel, has experienced this audio and video both going through the ATEM in sync, exits the ATEM after encoding, completely out of sync. Just rule of thumb, don't trust Blackmagic design hardware for any encoding. It's just you run into things like these, and if you're in a production situation, there's really no time for such basic things to go out of whack.
Go, Bill.
When the transition was made from analog to digital, there was a lot of problems in this area, particularly in early camcorders and things like that and video. So the engineers muxed the two video and audio signals together. I find if you're using a camera capture device that does audio and video and interleaves them together at that source, at least it leaves that in sync. Now, when it hits your system, bets are off because a lot of production pipelines require the audio and the video to be separated and handled by two different routes. When that happens, all the delays and the possibilities of things moving out of sync increase logarithmically. So for me, when I'm working in editing, I try to keep that original file that is in sync as pristine as possible and not split it unless I absolutely need to. There are times when I have to disconnect the video and audio and process them separately, but when I don't have to do that, I don't, and I find things stay perfectly in sync. So it's just a process of understanding your signal flow and making sure there's no unnecessary delays that are hitting one aspect of the signal compared to the other.
Yeah, I think sometimes going out of sync. I don't think this is a production sync issue. I think this is an encoding sync issue. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Well, I'm still going to talk about hardware really quick.
Be quick about it if we're going to do above that, because it's what we're really dealing with is why is the ATEM not encoding in sync? Like that, because dropping sometimes out of sync means that it's an encoding problem. So we just have a lot of questions on the stack. so just make sure that you're answering the question that we have.
My point is that if you have cameras that are matching, what type of cables? I'd love to find out what type of HDMI cables you're running into there, because the hardware can be a part of this situation.
The most likely thing that's wrong here is your drive. So the drive cable or the drive itself is running slow, especially on a long record. So when you're dropping out of sync, I'd be really interested to have you do a test where you do a two-pop. That means that you've got two little things at the beginning and the end, and do it for 10 minutes and then try to do it for an hour on the same drive. What you're going to find is that as drives fill up to more, as an SSD drive fills up to more than 40%, it starts to become less efficient, and then it becomes harder for it to record to it. That is I would say that's 90% your problem is your drive that's connected to your ATEM. I've tested it pretty heavily. I agree with Mickey that I don't use the encode for anything that's production related, but I have tested it because I use it as a backup in some places, and that's what we found. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael's up next. I've heard that some tours that are using analog outboard for front of house, even with a digital console. Is that because of the specific sonic quality of that outboard, or is it a matter of aesthetic preference?
Go ahead, Jeff.
I would say this is not an or, this is an and, that it is both of those. It is the aesthetic preference of the specific sonic quality of that outboard. You'll often see even a high quality mic preamp, or usually like an analog compressor, is something that is not, the engineer decides that whatever compression is available to them in the digital domain is not emulating what they want out of this outboard compressor. And so that's, on the usually lead vocal channels where we see this a lot, is that people will bring in high quality analog processing.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, it's definitely, it's both. It completely just depends on the engineer. It depends on preferences. These analog pieces have really, really heavy sonic footprints, and so it's just a matter of what is facilitating the kind of band that you have. So, I mean, it's not uncommon for people to have Green Day's using an analog Neve console, but a lot of folks, are bringing distressors and all kinds of stuff. Nice channel strips for specific highlighted, like your lead vocals, that kind of stuff. It gets really, really extensive, and it gets very expensive. So it just really depends on the artist.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, I have to agree. It's both sonic quality and also sonic aesthetic. At the end of the day, a lot of the decisions regarding processing are creative decisions, especially for a music show. So if an analog piece of hardware, analog processor can get the mix engineer closer to what their end product that they want, then it doesn't really matter. Like analog, digital, whatever gets the job done.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, it's more common than you think, everything that everyone said there. And if Douglas, if you're curious and like to take a deep dive into this, you should really check out a YouTube channel called Nick Dela Cruz. He does these incredible behind-the-scenes interviews. He flies around, the entire country and does these interviews with front-of-house engineers. And just to name a few, there's a lot of people like Madonna's front-of-house engineer, Jelly Roll, Chris Stapleton, Pantera, Alice Cooper, Stained, Creed, and the list goes on and on. There's lots of people you'll find oftentimes Rupert Neve analog processors and a lot of other stuff.
Next question.
John Swindon in Essex in the UK. For live streaming production, Mac and PCs running NDI and Dante, should firewalls be engaged and or installed, or left off, done without?
Go ahead, Mickey.
With this question, I'm assuming you mean the firewalls on the computers themselves, Macs and PCs. If that's the case, then leave firewalls off for those computers. I would also very highly recommend taking both the NDI and the Dante certification courses. Get yourself certified, and also read white papers. All of the information to get these AV over IP protocols running on your network could be found in those courses. So it's good to certify up on those.
Go ahead, Marty.
Right. So Mickey made a very good point. There's two firewalls, actually. There's firewalls in your computer, and there's firewalls in the network. If you're running NDI and Dante in a absolutely closed network with no internet access and no Wi-Fi access, then it's just that traffic on the network, and it would be safe to leave the firewalls off. However, these applications and these network protocols are pretty good about self-adjusting the firewalls in the computers and opening the necessary ports. Although when you take the courses, you will learn exactly what ports need to be open, and then you can go into the firewalls and make sure that they absolutely are. If you do have internet access on these things, or if you haven't set up your particularly Windows to be set up without the necessary access to Microsoft's servers, You want to set up the out-of-box experience, the OOBE, when you initialize your Windows for the very first time. You want to do it completely disconnected from the internet, and that will make it much safer and have the computer will be reaching out. You can do it without being logged into Windows or Microsoft, and you'll have a lot less internet access and a more closed network.
Next question.
Next one comes from Wouter in Amsterdam. I'm building an OB outside broadcast truck. Any advice for monitors, brand, type, and size?
Go ahead, Mickey.
So yeah, what would you typically, the brands of production reference monitors you'd typically find in an OB truck or a broadcast truck include what do you call this, companies like Sony, Boland, also TV Logic. Sorry, my ATEM's not working for some reason. Surprise, surprise. So yeah, Sony, Boland, TV Logic is also a pretty popular brand, along with Bon, which is a sister company of ICANN. Bon is their slightly higher quality product line. Another company that's fairly popular, although more in the cinema space, is Flanders Scientific, along with Small HD. But you typically find Sony and Boland in broadcast trucks.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, just a note on video monitors. You need a couple of what are called production monitors that are color balanced and absolutely accurate. You also have a whole bunch of other screens that aren't as mission critical. So often in trucks, you'll find a whole bunch of, I got 30 cameras, I need 30 monitors on those cameras to assess the live feeds. But the main monitors are color balanced and high dollar just to make sure that someone can judge the accuracy of the signals.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, and also without knowing budget too, like for screens that you just need information, or for example, like if you need a multi-view, I've actually really come to like the Asus ProArt series monitors. Now these are obviously HDMI monitors, so if you have a SDI signal chain, you'll probably need to get some Blackmagic converter boxes. But the interesting thing about those monitors is they're Kalman color calibrated out of the box. They're reasonably priced for a color calibrated monitor. And for a consumer monitor, they actually accept a variety of different frame rates, including fractional frame rates. A lot of PC monitors will be locked at 60 hertz. They won't work with, like, say, 29 or 30 or all these other different formats. So that's why I like those.
Yeah, and it depends on how you want to run your truck as well. So one of the things that we did is in our trailer that we built, we didn't want anyone to think that they were looking at the proper color except for one person. So we had a Sony color accurate monitor that was in the corner, and the person that was shading and the person that was accountable for the color had that monitor. No one else was allowed to say anything about color. So what we did is we just used, and for us, we used a lot of consumer monitors for that, because we just needed one monitor, one version of the truth. Everything else is our consumer monitors, so that if someone says, "Oh, I don't think the color's right," we're like, "Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that part. That's not your job." So this is what ours look like. Now, what we did here is we did just 55-inch monitors. So these are splits. These monitors are all split here. We were using multi-views across the board, and we had probably 6 of those, and then we were able to rearrange those any way we needed to actually produce it. Again, in a larger broadcast truck, I think Mickey is totally correct in all the kind of monitors that are used. In a small, lower budget trailer, we found this to be very effective, and we did some pretty good shows using those monitors there, and having the multi-views there is was great, because we just rearrange everything as we needed it to, and make it big, make it small, rearrange how we used them. I think we had 6 of them in there that made it work. Now, that was a Marker Tech, and what we did is we actually rebuilt the Marker Tech so that we could put all those monitors and make the tables bigger and a bunch of other things that were there. But that turned out to be very effective for our very, very limited space and a very limited budget. The great thing about 55-inch monitors is that they're so cheap now. So they and again, we didn't spend a lot of money on the monitors we put in there, because we didn't want anyone to tell us about their job was just to look at it. And the people there's one person that had a color accurate monitor, and their job was color. Yeah, go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, definitely. In lower budget situations, not everyone requires an accurate reference monitor, but the key decision makers should definitely have them. Like, and even if though you tell them like, don't make this, you tell a producer, don't make decisions on this model, it's not accurate. That's going to slip their mind, and they're going to have doubt throughout the production. So give the decision makers accurate reference monitors to look at. That includes the TD, the director, the key producer, any producing role that has a say and does decision making. Of course, your camera shaders need to have accurate monitors, but the rest of the crew can just use consumer displays. Although saying that though, there are some entities that go above and beyond, wherein even the audio department gets like full accurate reference monitor. So it's a matter of budget. I just want to recap because I think there was a confusion in chat. What I mentioned earlier is a company called Boland, not Roland. And just to go through this real quick, there's Sony, TV Logic, Bond, Flanders Scientific, and also Small HD that supply good reference monitors that are very popular in the industry.
Next question.
Next one comes to us from Paul O'Connor in London. Zoom Pro license only allows for a maximum of 720p streaming. Is there a way to obtain a business license for Zoom for a small business without having to purchase 10 subscriptions, wanting to offer 1080p to clients?
Go ahead, Alex.
So in October of last year, I noticed that the Zoom website had made a change, and suddenly one license was available to me for Zoom Business, so I jumped on it. So I have a 1080p account, but my understanding is that it hasn't fully rolled out to all locales yet, and I don't know if that's – you might want to – if you haven't checked in a few months in the UK, you might want to check again and see if you have it. If not, I know people that have been able to get these accounts by just using a VPN. So, for example, if you use a VPN, pretend you're in Canada, you should actually be able to get that account and then submit a ticket and get 1080p turned on. So I know that has worked for some people, but your mileage may vary.
Good, Mickey.
Yeah, it varies from that option varies from region to region, and I just say like with the value of a higher resolution that you can supply to clients. Even at 10 business licenses, that is still a great deal and something that we're still paying for ever since we learned about it a couple of years ago. We're still paying for and happily paying for it because it's a great value at a relatively affordable price compared to other video transport methods.
Next question.
Pedro G. Gonzalez, the third in Washington, D.C. I would pay an extra $20 if the ATEM Mini could output to 4K 120p. How much would you pay for this feature upgrade?
Go ahead, Jeff.
More than $20, definitely. And are you talking about the entire ATEM Mini being 4K throughout, meaning accepting 4K inputs, giving 4K ISO, or are you just talking about a 4K output and only 1020 as far as regular inputs, and that only say a super source or something that you built up would give you 4K? But if the entire thing is 4K throughout, double the price would be worth it.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, and there are some large broadcasting entities in North America that have paid upwards of $200 million to re-outfit their facilities to be able to do higher frame rate HFR productions.
Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
I just want good audio, a better DAC, proper balanced audio. I don't think it makes good business sense for a product of this caliber at this price range, at the target market that they're going for. I don't think it makes sense to put the money into the chips and processing to be able to support that, because you got to think about how many cameras support that kind of frame rate at that resolution. And if you can afford a camera that can do that, why are you buying a $1,500 switcher? It doesn't add up.
Well, and this would be the ATEM Mini, which would be $300. We have to remember that the bandwidth required to do what you're talking about is 8 times. So it's 4 times, the 4K is 4 times than your 1080p stream, and then you multiply it by 2 to get to 120 frames a second. So it's 8 times the pressure on the system that the 1080p is providing. So I would be surprised if it wasn't 4 to 8 times more expensive to do that at that level. It's just an incredible amount of it's every subsystem that has to be improved to make that actually happen. So it'll be interesting to see where Blackmagic goes. I think that there's a opportunity for them to do higher frame rates. I think that the only place we'll see high frame rate is in these constellations. I think everything else will stay where it's at. Even there potentially be, but I think because the reality is that 99% of our productions are still 1080p. There's some of us that are doing 4K at least for records, if not for the production itself. But we haven't seen a huge push for that. I actually think that frame rate makes more of a difference than resolution. So if I was going to trade off there, I would take the 120 frames per second over the 10 over 4K. I think you can see the difference from the test. I work in 120 frame pretty regularly, and I can see the difference between 120 and 60. And I can definitely see it between 30 and 24. Next question.
Kyle Nesta in Philadelphia. Best practices for re-embedding audio with an SDI signal before the encoding and or distribution.
I go, Jeff.
Get a dedicated audio embedder. Preferably if you have a digital source, get an embedder that will take a digital AES EBU source so that you are not converting back to analog and then reconverting to digital before embedding. And definitely check all of the settings. Usually these kind of things are small boxes with dip switches that you need to be very careful about how you have things set.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, on the output side of your switcher on the way to your encode and distribution, a lot of people utilize FrameSync's FS processors in order to be able to do your any final correction that needs to be done on the video processing wise, frame rate wise, and probably scaling if you need to, along with embedding your audio on the way out. These boxes typically take in MIDI or AES EBU to bring the audio in. Another option is if in case you are invested or might be looking to invest in an open gear infrastructure, there are a lot of open gear cards from the likes of Evertz, AJA, of course, Ross Video, of course. There's a lot of open gear cards that you can put into a frame to do your final embed for audio.
Yeah, primarily we use the FS HDRs or the FS4s is what we tend to use. I know that's a pretty heavy landing, but the advantage of that is, number one, is we are able to take in a lot of different inputs, but number two is that we are able to delay at the embed, which we really like to be able to do. And so we're not, if we see an issue, we don't have to disrupt the entire production to go back and make a fine adjustment. Now, my most popular one for a decade was the Pix series. So either the 240 or the 260 we would use because we had a lot of control over delay. We were able to bring those inputs in. We were able to see. What I really loved about that one is that we had a monitor so we could see this is what is going out. And so that's always our strong preference, but we tend to end up using the FS series to make most of these changes at a professional level. Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, and larger FrameSync boxes, not only the AJA ones, but also you almost always just see Evertz, allow you to reshuffle your channels coming in. So in situations where you're doing multi-language productions where you're spitting out 8 languages, you can assign like specific channels of your MIDI feed coming in, the 64 channels. You can say, okay, channels 1 to 6 of this is 5.1 mix for your domestic English language, and then you have another 6 channels for your French deliverable, and another 6 channels for other languages. So having a FrameSync typically allows you to also select what channels get embedded into which SDI output.
Next question.
Zach Stallsmith, Chautauqua, New York. I'm looking to replace my audio interface for my House of Worship setup. I currently use Dante from an X32 and picked that up in vmix with a USB interface as backup. I want something that'll provide crystal clear audio. Recommendations?
Go ahead, Alexander.
I'm surprised you don't have crystal clear audio now. I mean, I've never had any. I mean, I haven't been using Dante for too long, but I have crystal clear audio with Dante. I don't use an X32, but I would not go back to an analog audio interface just to ingest some basic, a stereo feed. Just the advantages are too great with Dante. I mean, if you really want better sound quality overall, I would say upgrade the console. Get rid of the X32 and go with something, higher end, like an Allen Heath of some kind, like an Ibanez or something like that.
Go ahead, Marty.
Yeah, if you're not getting good audio with Dante, problem is probably not with Dante or with USB for that matter. The X32 is a great console. It has a couple of limitations, but I've gotten some great audio and some great recordings out of an X32 if you use it properly. I wish I knew exactly what you were trying to improve, what aspect of audio you were trying to improve, whether it's noise or distortion or clarity. Each of these can have different indicators of what to improve. It could be acoustics, it could be microphones, it could be analog cabling, it could be how you're getting into your console. It could be many different things to look at to see what could be improved about your acoustic and your audio chain. But Dante is probably not it.
Go ahead, Jeff.
You don't say how you're getting Dante in the computer. So if you're using Dante Virtual Sound Card and you want to move away from that, everybody's been right that Dante is not your issue as far as properly set up Dante will give you transparent transmission of audio from the console into your computer. Other options to look at if you want a hardware solution is a small Avio device for 2 channels, so you can have an Avio to USB-C. And if you need more channels, then RME Digiface Dante interface will give you multi-channel Dante into a computer, avoiding a virtual sound card. But again, if you're not getting crystal clear audio now, the problem is not Dante and your interfaces, it's somewhere else.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, I'm a little confused because you're using an X32. Are you using it just as an audio interface, or are you actually mixing on the console? Because those would be 2 different solutions for hardware to possibly replace that to something of better quality, especially on the A to D and D to A conversion stages. If you're just looking for an audio, like a small audio interface, that would vary. Again, like we need more information. Like, are you just using this as I/O, or and you're doing the actual mixing in vmix, and also what are your channel requirements, your channel count requirements, and also do you need to interface with other digital formats or just analog?
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I would just point out again that obviously there's a lot of things that go into our systems, and everyone wants everything to be streamlined, and our fantasy of our end result is always clean audio and no problems, and it's all great, and that's fine. But someone has to run all this stuff. And so that's the one thing that I would tell people to kind of like, you have to go into this with no ego. If you have a bunch of stuff that is set up correctly and your output is not correct, it's not sounding good and you're having issues, things like that. I don't know who's doing the actual mixing on this, but you may need a better mixer. I mean, you can have the best stuff in the world, and if your operator is not correct, I can make a mix sound terrible with the stuff behind me if I do the wrong thing. I mean, it's having the right stuff does not equate to your end result just being great. It doesn't mean that your band is now amazing. It doesn't mean that things are now all perfect. It means that you've put in the potential pathways to have knowledgeable people get you to the end in a really, really solid way.
Yeah, to your point, I was just at a concert. I won't mention who, but I was at a concert, and the opening act sounded crisp, clear, beautiful. The main act sounded muddy, and I could barely hear the vocals. And I was like, well, the system knows how to do it.
Okay, what band, Alex? No.
So anyway, so I was just like, that was obviously a creative decision, one that I don't agree with. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, so also check the source. So I would get good reference headphones, solo the bus that is being used as the mix that is going out to Dante, see how it sounds. However, Zach just posted and also says that he's doing that, and he says it sounds fine. So I would also check your Dante settings there, and because I know I don't have an X32, but on my DM3 there are options for bit depth. So just make sure it's also set at 24-bit, whatever the highest quality bit rate that you can get. Also check that, check the sample rates, check to make sure everything matches as well.
And if you want to ask questions and you don't actually want to sign in and you just want to ask the question quickly, you can go to askofficehours.global. That's askofficehours.global. You can do it any time of the day. We'll get them in. We'll feed them in slowly. Try to make sure that they're well formed and focused on what we mostly talk about here. And we'll feed them in over the next couple weeks or next couple days. Jeff, you had one more note.
Yeah, I just thought of that as Alex mentioned the Dante. When you put a Dante card into a console that was not developed with that in mind, oftentimes clocking can be confusing because the Dante system has its own self-negotiated clock. That is the entire Dante network. And the console needs to agree with that. Or if you want the console to be master clock, then the Dante system needs to look to the console for that. So you could have a clocking conflict between the X32 and its Dante card, that they are both living on their own clock worlds. And so the digital transmission out to the Dante system is having a problem there. So you really need to look deep into that, and feel free to hit any of us audio guys up in the Dante channel in Discord. Give us a map of your system, give us some screenshots of your Dante controller clocking setup, and probably some X32 clocking screenshots, and we can help you work through this.
Go ahead, Mickey.
But yeah, I asked a question to Zach in chat, like if he is doing a separate mix for broadcast versus the what goes out in house, because he mentioned it sounds good in house. My question would be, with that, if there is indeed an issue with the audio coming out of the if your broadcast mix on the board sounds good, but once it hits vmix it's bad, then there's something wrong with the connection there. What I would look into, since you mentioned you're using vmix, which means you're using Windows, go into Windows sound settings for your recording device, as Windows calls it, and make sure that automatically enhance audio is turned off, which Windows turns on by default. Make sure that's not enabled, because that just ruins everything. Thanks, Windows.
Next question.
This one's from Jeff Veely in Henderson, Texas. When mounting acoustic clouds, what should be considered when working around ceiling fans? The room is a Zoom broadcast studio with 11 foot 7-inch ceilings.
Go ahead, Chris.
Don't let the fan hit the ceiling cloud. Thank you. Good. No, I would say, really, the real thing here, guys, is remember you're going from a room without ceiling treatment to any treatment is a massive, massive upgrade. So this is a huge thing. If you have to tweak things within a couple inches or whatever, that's maybe not fully optimal for you. Remember, like, the overall benefit you're getting it's so good that it's not even a conversation. So just get things where you can in the best way. If you have mounted lights in your room, that can frequently be a really easy way to kind of line up where you're going to put your panels and just kind of, get a nice symmetric thing. But yeah, really just measure out from the wall and make sure that you're moving around the fan and don't think about it anymore, because just putting something there is such a huge upgrade. Like, keep doing that.
Go, Jason.
Yeah, the last time I did this, it was at a law firm, and I had a somewhat similar situation. It's worth remembering that if you get really high-quality ceiling tiles, both sides of the ceiling tiles can be used. And to that end, if you suspend them down just a little bit, you can actually acoustically block from the top and from the bottom. So you're getting, both primary and secondary reflection. This is an air conditioning unit, which was not in the blueprints. And the way that I compensated for it was, first, I programmed it to be very, very quiet during business hours. But I also kind of bent and lowered the acoustic tiles such that the way that it blew would be slightly muffled when the air turned on.
Go, Nikki.
So yeah, for this, you mentioned it as a broadcast studio. You don't need ceiling fans there; just remove them.
Go ahead, Mark. That's what I was going to say. Go ahead, Marty.
Exactly. Ceiling fans should not be in any room with microphones because they are blowing air directly down or up. They're blowing air directly around the room. When you have ceiling fan, when you have clouds, acoustic clouds that are suspended below the ceiling, they can be put below an air conditioning duct so that the supply feeding air down into the room does not go down directly to the floor, but reflects off of the cloud and disperses it around the room, lowering the velocity of the air. So in a room with like a studio or any room with microphones, the key to keeping it quiet and keeping it cool is high volume of air at a very, very low velocity, a very low speed. So ceiling fans are the direct opposite of that. You want to take a look at how you're feeding air into and drawing air out of the room, making sure that you don't have thin supply registers, which can cause turbulent noise. You want to open up those registers so that there's nothing impeding the air going through, and you want to keep the air velocity at a low velocity.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, Jeff mentions in the chat that if they rented space and removal may not be an option, but it still could be. So look into removing it, talk to the landlord. If you really cannot remove them, then hang the clouds using like fishing lines and hook below the fans. You want your clouds to be at varying heights anyway, so you can have the clouds that cover up the fans be at a lower level compared to other clouds, and place them at different angles to minimize the remaining standing waves that are there, so that they reflect off at different angles and don't just keep bouncing down up and down between the clouds there and also the floor.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I was assuming when I answered this question before that the fan would be off when you guys were doing any kind of recording. But yeah, absolutely do not have a moving fan in the room. If you can't move it out, simply turn it off. Just don't have it on and you're
definitely don't. If you have mic, as mentioned by Marty, if you have mics in there, even shut down the breaker.
I mean, it is going to blow air.
Give people the ability, yeah.
It doesn't sound good.
I mean, at minimum, if you're there, I mean, if we go into a place that has something that you don't want to turn on, we try to find every switch that could turn it on, and we gaff tape it shut. Like, we just gaff tape over the thing and say, do not remove, like it's usually written on it, like, don't touch this, and you can make it look nice. The right gaff tape, we have lots of different colors. So if it's like a white one, we put the white gaff tape on it, but we still put a little thing, don't dare move, don't dare change this, and you kind of just make sure that people don't actually use it. And if you're going to, even if we're there for a couple hours, we're known to kind of gaff tape over things we don't want people to use while we're working. And you could also put a box in front of the switch that doesn't do anything. Some people can switch it up and down. It's kind of like the closed door button on an elevator. Most of the time is actually not connected to any. Both open and closed doors are often never connected to any circuitry. Next question.
Guy Cochran in Seattle, USA. How have you seen a tech error make a show go off the rails, and what was the lesson?
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, many times. The real thing is have communication. The situations where I really most commonly have seen it fall apart is when I got like a crew coming in was typically maybe self-contained or not. Maybe bringing just a third of the system that they really need, maybe not bringing tails on a split, things like that, not having things worked out. And they show up and everybody's cocky and everybody is so sure that they're rock stars and it's great. And then, it's like none of this stuff is thought out and you've got cheap stuff and everything falls apart. And when people come in and all of a sudden there's this massive discussion of just where the band is going to be, like, you guys are the same band every time you play. You should have this stuff worked out. Now, if you're doing productions like actual TV productions, it's, it changes so much. Obviously, that's not mitigate that. But I would just say it's really about being thoughtful and real communication. Make sure everybody's working on the team together, and that someone's actually someone knowledgeable is calling the shots, because that's the big thing. You are as effective as your team, and that's no matter what. So one great worker with with more people than them that are undoing the quality of the situation, there's no quality control there, and it's a dead thing. So
go ahead, Alex.
Not that this happened to me, and actually it didn't, but going to a concert and then basically in the middle of the show, mid-song, all of the power, everything goes black. So one of the things I've seen this, and I run into this, and I know a lot of people that experience this issue, but people really underestimate power. You really need to be careful when you go to a venue, especially if it's not yours. Figure out what's the load of all the equipment that you're bringing. Know what circuit breakers you're connecting to. Make sure that you're not overloading that 15 amp or 20 amp circuit, whatever it is that you're plugging into. Making sure that you're separating things out properly, because that's really the last thing that you want happening during a show. Is just everything goes black.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, just for anybody who is doing a larger production like that, make sure. I mean, typically any kind of pros setting, people are bringing an actual distro, and they're tapping into just provided extra power for the band or for the event, whatever. So it's typically like 3-phase cam lock is the safe way that we would distribute that. But absolutely make sure that you have. Don't expect people to have 15, 20 amp circuits on stage. No one's going to have that, and so already you've failed your whole production because you just undershot what you needed so much and you left it up. The real thing is make sure if you need something, bring it with you. That's the only way to ensure that your production is going to go smoothly. Like, that's the only thing you can do.
Yeah, almost everything that goes off the rails, not all of them. There's some things that you just can't avoid, and there's things that are acts of nature, but there's not very many. There's not very many. Almost all of them can be drawn back to a lack of available resources. So you run out of resources, and that oftentimes comes to, which is what everyone else is pointing towards, is making sure that you have lack of human resources, lack of technical resources, lack of time resources. All of these things are part of that puzzle to make sure that you absolutely have the time to fix things. A lot of times when we have 3 or 4 days to load in and get ready to go, if something's not right, we send someone out and go get it. Go buy things. We've adjusted IFBs and mics and cameras and everything else because the ones that we have. But if you get 4 hours to load in, you got to know everything about it. So a lot of times, for instance, for us, like I have a show coming up in a couple weeks, and we're already building the kit. Like we're building the kit. We're having meetings about the kit. We're going to take the kit down there. Not only is it going to have the kit, but it's going to have a bunch of extra. What are the extra things with a crikey? The extra camera, the extra systems, the extra pipelines, all those things are all part of that process to make sure. And then we're loading in 4 days before the event. So next question.
Kyle Nesta in Philadelphia. How can I set up an IFB that's interruptible fallback for a single host, allowing a remote producer to communicate? I need program audio to duck when the producer speaks using Unity Intercom, Unity Cloud. Bonus points for a hardware solution.
Good, Marty.
You can do this right in the console, right in the mixing console. Like last week, I had a show. We were doing remote interviews. So we had a guest in the studio. We had a local producer, we had a remote producer, we had remote program, which had to feed into IFB, and we had our local crew, and, different people needed to hear different things. Did it all in the console. You can bring all of your comms into channels in the console, bust them out appropriately. When you need to do ducking, you can use your compressor mode with ducking. That is keyed to a different channel. So you have your producer channel, you have your IFB channel coming into your board. The IFB channel can be keyed. The compressor can be keyed from the producer's audio so that when the producer talks, that channel, the IFB channel, ducks down. Don't know what mixer you're using, but most mixers these days, digital mixers, will have this kind of feature. So yeah, that's your hardware solution.
Good, Mickey.
Yeah, there are multiple layers to this. First off, you're using Unity Cloud. to be able to bring in isolated channels of a PL or what the Unity calls channel into a local system, the only way is to run a standard Unity Intercom client, which may be limiting in cases where, say, you do want to bring in 6 different PLs into your local infrastructure, where the talent is. I would recommend, if you want to stick with Unity, look into getting a license for the actual server and run your own Unity Intercom server along with the I/O license, so that you can send the PLs or channels out directly out of an audio interface without having to rely on multiple individual Unity Intercom clients, just standard clients. If you want to go with a replace the reliance on Unity Cloud, I'd recommend going with a professional production intercom system. Companies like Riedel provide have very popular ones. Their Artis series is one of the top of the line. Along with RTS, they have their Omnio system for smaller systems, and then you can also build up from there. Apart from that, if you do really want to stick with Unity Cloud, then you'd have to run those individual Unity Intercom clients and send the PL or the channel out of an audio interface. And then you can utilize, as Marty said, channels on your mixing console to provide the ducking, the interrupting of the foldback going into the talent's IFB pack. Or you can also utilize a separate DSP. Symmetrics has very powerful DSP systems, along with BSS has the Blue 806 that has DSP processing. It's a fully featured, completely designable DSP processing pipeline with these DSP boxes, and you can do your ducking there, along with a lot of other utilitarian audio processing requirements that your production may need.
Next question.
Peter Moore in Auckland, New Zealand. Congrats on our 5th anniversary. Office hours got me through COVID. My Hughes and Kettner Meister Deluxe 40 amp has a MIDI foot switch, which is powered by one of the ports with 7 pins, 2 providing power. Is this a supported standard?
Go, Jeff.
So MIDI is a 5-pin DIN connector, and it only actually uses, it's a balanced signal, so it uses 3 of the pins, 2 are left blank. So that's the standard for MIDI, and then Hughes and Kettner and some other brands have added 2 additional pins for power, and I believe they fit so that you can plug a 5-pin into the 7-pin port, and it will not access the power pins. So I think that's why they do those extra pins there. But it's not just Hughes and Kettner, so I guess this is a supported standard that is coming along, but it's not in the original MIDI spec, which is now 45 years old anyway. So,
go, Jason.
Yeah, what Jeff said. The FSM 432 MK3 is the foot switch, and my understanding of the way that they needed to add 2 pins had to do with gauges that were too small with the original MIDI 5-pin standard. So to offset it, they basically just added it for, symmetry.
Next question.
From the QR code, Marielle Jusha Miaran Wablo, we've noticed as we mix the track is how making an element in the mix mono that doesn't have to be in the stereo field helps a lot with cleaning up low-end MIDI. Have you done that a lot?
Good, Jeff.
Yes, I'll remind you that the history of audio production has low frequencies largely in mono. A couple of very good technical reasons for this. Phonograph LP production, when it went from mono to stereo, the mono is carried in the side-to-side groove, so extreme amounts of the up-down was the mono and the side-to-side added the stereo. So if you had out of phase information, out of polarity information in the low end, if your left and right channels at low frequencies had a lot of out of phase information, that would cut the groove very wide and it would go into the next groove. So phonograph cutting put the low frequencies into mono. Same thing as we moved into speaker systems that use a shared subwoofer. A lot of people, their stereo system is a 2.1 system, so the low frequencies are carried by a single speaker, so they're summed into mono there. So you probably are listening through such a system, and most of your listeners, your consumers, are going to be listening through such a system. So keep low frequencies in mono. The only thing I would say is, as you make an element from a stereo element to a mono element, just be careful, because pan pots are designed with a 3 dB drop. And if you take the signal and you put it equally on, if you had it equally on the left and the right, and those two were dropping 3 dB, you could have a 3 dB level difference, but obviously you're mixing, so you should be listening and choosing the level of these elements just by ear. So you'll compensate for that when you switch a track from a stereo track to a mono track, or vice versa. You'll lose the pan pot or gain a pan pot, so that may affect 3 dB level changes. But generally, low frequencies are better in mono, because everyone's going to hear that produced in mono through most speaker systems.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, and in situations wherein you're talking about content that's actually in stereo, then make sure that that content is actually mono compatible. If you're talking about, like, say, commercially released music, that is already checked during the mastering stage, and also, of course, the mixing stage, that it is mono compatible. But just make sure that it sounds good and nothing sounds phasey when you do sum them down to a stereo feed. If the source is mono, then just pan it center and use your phantom setter there.
Next question.
Archie Trevetti in Daytona Beach, Florida, USA. I have 2 Pixel devices, Fold 9 Pro. Would you use a headset like a Beyer Dynamics with a mic, or something like a wireless package as the Sennheiser Profile provides? Connection type would be USB, or use an interface/field recorder.
I go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, for something like this, I'm assuming you're not broadcasting live. If so, let me know. But I would definitely go with a field recorder. If you're doing this on your own, you might want something that's very compact and easy for you to operate by yourself. If that's the case, then I'd probably take a look at the there's a bunch of recorders like this, little recorders. Like Deity has the PR2, which is a tiny recorder that has a 3.5 mil input that you can hook up a lav to, or a headset mic into. Other options are the Tascam has the DR10C and the DR10L Pro, a similar little pocket recorders, a little smaller than or about the size of a lavalier transmitter pack for wireless. But all these do is record. And another option is the Tentacle Track E, which comes from the Tentacle, the company that makes timecode generator boxes. They have this box that has a microphone input. You can plug in a 3.5 mil lavalier or headset into it. The one thing I don't like about the Track E is it does require an app to use, compared to, say, the Tascam, which is fully controllable just on the unit itself. And the PR2 has a nice, relatively nicely sized record button right at the corner there, which you could very easily find to roll on your takes.
If what we do is of value to you, there's a couple ways that you can help us. Of course, you can like and subscribe to the channel. You can also become a volunteer. So you can go to officehours.global/volunteer and become part of the village that makes this possible. And finally, you can donate. We're a nonprofit. officehours.global/donate. Next question.
Kenny Hampton in Greenville, Illinois, seeking opinions on the QSC TouchMix-30 Pro, a decade-old design with ongoing firmware updates and still on the market. Thoughts?
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
It's a pretty decent mixer. We use, for my band, we use the 16, and I've used the 30 many different times. The couple big problems that come with it is whenever they do an update, sometimes the app stops working. And then when it comes to hardware side of things, in the preamps, the biggest issue is replacing capacitors on each of the channels, which is not difficult to do. But of course, if you don't understand how the board works, that you probably want to have somebody do it for you. But overall, it's a set it and forget it type of board. Works really well in those situations. I see them in conferences all the time, as with one or two channels plugged in for microphones.
Go ahead, Marty.
Depends on what you're going to be using it for. There's a local venue here near me that uses it for for music for bands all the time. Sounds pretty good, does a pretty good job. However, and they're of course running it by tablet, but they bring 3 different tablets out to the house and they take up a seat. I mean, if you're going to have 3 different tablets out in front of you, you might as well just have a mixing console. But it's capable, and if you're just using it for conferences, if it meets your input needs and your processing needs and your output needs, it's a nice little board.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, TouchMix has indeed been around for a while. A mixer with a touchscreen for control and faders, well, especially for faders, certainly something I would not use for a production. Maybe as a utility mixer for some, I just need to sum a bunch of things down, and I don't have to touch it while the show is going on. Sure, but if say your channel count doesn't require 32 channels, then I would probably go with a Yamaha DM3D. It's a nice, relatively affordable mixer. And if you need more channels, I'd probably get a second one and cascade down through it. It's just touchscreen faders. No.
Go ahead, Alex.
I don't necessarily have a problem with touchscreens. I have a problem with touchscreens specifically that are horrible to use, and the QSC TouchMix touchscreen is just awful. It's like I think it's a resistive touchscreen, so it doesn't feel like an iPad. You have to press hard. There's lots of mispresses. The only way I find that the console is usable is with the iPad app. Sound quality wise, it's fine. It has lots of I/O. It has that going for it. The TouchMix-30 is the only model out of that whole family that'll do the multi-track recording. The other models don't. These days, not quite as much I/O, but the new Allen Heath CQ series, which has a touchscreen. Now that touchscreen is really nice. Preamps sound better, and the A to D converters are higher end. It is a newer product, obviously, so it's got newer technology inside it. But the CQ series, I would seriously look at that. Also, Mickey's suggestion of buying a couple of DM3s, considering the price. The DM3s sound fantastic, and they got Dante, and you've got a lot more options there.
Next question.
This one's from Kyle Nesta in Philadelphia. Talent IFB earpiece recommendation: good, better, and best.
Go ahead, Marty. Can't hear you, Marty. I can't hear you, Marty.
Sorry about that. The typical historical ENG type IFB earpiece comes from Audio Implements and a similar product from Telex. Although they're pretty low quality, but they come with many different sizes of little earbulbs, ear tips that are easily changeable. Higher quality product would come from Voice Technologies. So the first two, they have a little driver, a little round button driver that gets clipped onto the back of the collar, and then there's an acoustic coiled air tube that goes up to the earpiece itself. Voice Technologies takes a little different approach. They have a higher quality driver that can actually sit behind the ear. It's a little bigger than a grain of rice, and then a very short tube to the earpiece. which improves the quality as well. That would be my choice. There are a number of other IFB pieces that have come on the market recently from another number of other companies. There's a lot to choose out there, but that would be my choice.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, your traditional one that you'll find a lot of broadcasters use are indeed the ones from Audio Implements. You'll find a lot of broadcasters that are always on air may already have custom molded earpieces that simply snap into the Audio Implements transducer. So if you're dealing with that kind of talent, then you may want to invest in Audio Implements, or keep 20, 30 of them around and just replenish as needed. We typically treat these as just expendables, and so just give it the talent; it's theirs to keep, and keep on going through a stock of them. What I've switched to for the past 7, 8 years now, for productions wherein it's not a one-off. Productions where it's used throughout the entire production for like a 2 or 3 month long production, are the Bumblebee Sidekick IFB earpieces. A lot of TV shows we use these throughout the run of a season, and then the next season we get another full replenishment of them to give out for that season. They certainly sound a lot better than the acoustic tube IFB solutions, and they're a lot more discreet. These cables are extremely thin, so you don't see that coil going up to your talent's ears. For one-off productions wherein it's one day news hit or one day insert studio work, what we've moved on to doing is getting bags of like 100, 200, 300 pieces of these very cheap AliExpress or Alibaba earpieces. Yes, you do get, your occasional unit that does not work. And, you just have to toss them. But at $1 and $1.80 per piece, that's like fine. Okay, I'll throw away 1 out of 20, and for that price, that's totally fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And Carlos Rojas said networks are using Phonak in the in-ear IFBs for wireless and packless high noise floor, but the talent likes it. So yeah, and we've definitely used Phonak. Phonak is a wireless system. It'll run on 75 or 216, just like the Comtex, they're very comfortable. They don't have a bunch of wires, but man, it's doing wireless for the thing that if a person's walking around and you don't want to see the cable, this is why we use it. We absolutely don't want to see the cable. They're walking around doing a show and tell, and we want it to be quote unquote invisible, and we can get our transmitter within 20 feet. Like that's where we use those. Now I will say they worry me a lot. I've never had a problem with them. But if someone's seated, I'm not going to give them a Phonak. I'm going to give them a wire, just because I just want to know it's working. Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, we've used Phonak a lot, but more for scripted work because, first off, batteries don't last nearly as long as, like, say, electronics.
You buy these little packs of batteries and you just burn through them all day. Yeah. Yeah,
batteries just don't last long. The range isn't great as well. But if you do want to go the Phonak route, go with either the 216 megahertz or the 72 megahertz version. Do not go with the Roger because they're infuriatingly unreliable.
The which ones?
The Roger.
The Phonak
awful.
Yeah, the 2.4 gigahertz Phonak Roger system. Programming them as well. It's just
Yeah, I guess the what I was told is Jack Nicholson uses the Phonak so that people can read him his lines while he's actually acting, and who was someone like to have music put in their ear. I just can't think of that would get them in the mood, and they'd always have that playing. Go ahead, Marty.
So I know that there are some studios and some locations where if they don't want to use RF because they're either in a very congested area or they don't want to impact their own wireless, you can use an induction loop system. with induction loop IFB pieces. They're available from Comtech, I think is one, and there's one other one, I think.
Auto makes them. They're horrible. Like the Auto ones are horrible. I haven't tried the Auto makes a version of that inductance loop. It's completely useless. Ask me how I know.
Yeah. The design of the induction loop can make a difference. I mean, you can just do a loop around your area, and if you drive it properly and you have a decent earpiece, it can sound really good, actually. Also, if for somebody who is on camera all of the time, like an anchor or something, they can have custom earpieces made. So one of them is from Sensophonics. They will make this IFB earpiece specifically to fit their ear with a standard plug that you can plug into an IFB earpiece. And so that's another way to go.
I lost track of time. We're running over. We're going to have one more question, and then we'll move on. Last question.
Last question is from Zach Stylesmith in Chautauqua, New York. I'm finishing up version 2 of a Dante course. Very helpful with all the new info. What is the best way to market this to clients?
Go ahead, Jeff.
I think that you market this over time, not by telling them that you are a Dante certified number 2, that you make your productions seamless and no technical problems, and you become the person who fixes other people's Dante problems when you're on site. And you get called again and again, and you're the person that when you are there, when you are hired for this production, things go smoothly and they don't have worries. That's the marketing.
100%. Yeah, go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, 100%. If you are looking to, if by clients you mean you're marketing yourself to other production companies, certainly be very proficient with the new tools that you've learned how to use, and just make things work. Like you're not going to get work by saying like, oh, I'm replacing this cable with this cable. No, people don't care about that. Your clients don't care what cable you're using. They care that you're able to get the productions up and running. You have your audio flowing smoothly and with no hiccups. And that's like what Jeff mentioned. That's what will get you hired. If by clients you mean your actual the actual end clients that the productions are being produced for, then again, saying you're using this cable versus this cable won't get you any jobs. But expanding the types of work that you can do and the capabilities that your productions can bring, or your technical facilities can bring into the productions, then that will be the selling point. You can provide these services. You can provide surround mixing. You can provide whatever. In addition, any other value adds in addition to your normal production selling points that you're currently providing. The additional actual tangible things that can perhaps even be a line item in your quotation is what will get you work. Not the fact that you're using Dante over some other protocol.
Of course, Guy Cochran said that you should humble brag on LinkedIn, of course. And the proper structure of a humble brag is, it was really an honor to take the blah, 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 blah. Don't do that. Sorry. So anyway, those just be useful on LinkedIn. It works better. Jeff, one last word.
Yeah, and if you are the person who, because you know Dante, helps out another production company that is on your production, there's multiple teams hired, and you help them out, you tell no one.
Yeah.
You don't tell the client that you saved that date. Word will get around. And sometime you might need someone else to save you, and they will have your back if you've had their back.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you so much. What a great hour. This is the beginning, the first day of our next 5 years. We finished our last 5 years yesterday with a great evening show. If you didn't see the evening show, we had an evening show last night where we kind of reminisced a little bit about the last 5 years. We've done this now for 5 years straight without missing a single day. So you might want to check that out. But thank you so much to the great panel here. Our audio day is always dense, and we really appreciate all the panelists that come on to talk about audio on Wednesdays. We can't do this without you. Thanks to the incredible the producers who are asking all of these great questions and keeping us focused on all these things we're trying to figure out, especially around audio on these Wednesdays. We really appreciate all the questions that drive it. It's every week it's something different. Every day it's something different, and we never know what it's going to be until we show up. It's amazing that we do this every day, and we talked about it last night. We've done over 60,000 or 65,000 questions, and every day there's more. You just keep dipping into the well, but that is because all of you are watching and asking those questions, and we really appreciate your contribution. And thanks to the incredible team on the back end that makes this possible in the evenings, in the mornings, weekends, on the Sundays, all the time. There's so many different shows going on, and it takes so much work to manage it, to engineer it, to develop for it, all of those things are part of the process. And we just really appreciate everyone who puts in time, volunteers their time to make this actually possible. Today, if we had done this in person and walked from person to person to person, we would have traveled 27,000 miles. That's 43,000 kilometers, and that is 211 million bananas for scale. All right, let's go ahead and jump into After Hours. That was fun. I was so into the answers that I looked up, I was like, oh no, it's 8:05.
I'm like, okay, Alex is going to cut this off, right?
No, I was just like, I looked up, I was like, oh, maybe I should stop. But it's good. Good dense day. Thanks, everybody.
Did you call us dense?
Dense in a good way. Dense, like
informationally
protein
dense.
packed.
I've been called dense
packed.
before. My wife calls me dense.
I mean dense, like
Just tell her no, I'm protein packed. That'll do it.
There you go.
all right.
Thanks.